The Colors of Loss. Clara Whitmore sat alone in her sunlit studio, the once vivid hues on her canvas now muted and lifeless. For years, she had been celebrated as a visionary artist, her work gracing galleries across the country. Yet now, the very thing that had defined her seemed impossibly out of reach. Her muse, Michael, had been her everything. Her confidant, her critic, her lover. His sudden passing 6 months ago had left a void so vast that even the brightest palette couldn't fill it. Every stroke she attempted felt hollow, every concept incomplete. Michael had always said, "Your art is your soul, Clara. Let it breathe." But how could she breathe when grief pressed down on her chest like a weight she couldn't lift? The last commission. The call had come on an otherwise uneventful Tuesday morning. The prestigious Hawthorne Museum wanted Clara to create the centerpiece for their upcoming exhibit. It was to be her most ambitious project yet. A mural capturing the theme of resilience. Clara nearly turned it down. The idea of creating something meaningful while she felt so broken seemed impossible. But something in Michael's voice, lingering in the corners of her memory, urged her to say yes. "Maybe it's what I need," she murmured to the empty room. She had 3 months. The ghost of Michael. Every day, Clara stared at the blank wall in her studio, the pressure mounting with each passing hour. She tried sketching, hoping the act of drawing might loosen the creative knots in her mind, but nothing felt right. Michael had been her greatest supporter, but he was also her harshest critic. "I can hear you judging me," she muttered to the empty space. In her heart, she could almost imagine his chuckle. "It's not judgment, Clara. It's guidance. Just start." Finally, she dipped her brush into a pot of cobalt blue and made the first stroke. It was uneven, hesitant, but it was a start. The stranger in the gallery. Desperate for inspiration, Clara visited a nearby gallery showcasing contemporary art. She wandered aimlessly, her eyes scanning the walls but her mind elsewhere. Looking for something specific? A deep voice asked, startling her. She turned to see a man standing beside her, his expression kind but curious. He had dark, unruly hair and a demeanor that was equal parts confident and unassuming. "No, just looking," Clara replied. "I'm Adrian," he said, extending a hand. "I'm a curator here." Clara hesitated before shaking his hand. "Clara Whitmore." Recognition flickered in his eyes. "The Clara Whitmore? Your work is extraordinary." Clara offered a small smile. "It used to be." Adrian frowned. "What do you mean?" "It's complicated," she said, not wanting to delve into her grief with a stranger. "Art always is," Adrian replied. "But sometimes, seeing through someone else's eyes can help you find your own. The spark returns." Adrian's words lingered with Clara, and when he invited her to a local art retreat the following weekend, she surprised herself by agreeing to go. The retreat was held in a sprawling countryside estate, its grounds bursting with life and color. The other artists were warm and welcoming, their passion infectious. For the first time in months, Clara felt a flicker of something she couldn't quite name. Each day, she spent hours walking through the gardens, sketching the flowers, the trees, the way the sunlight played on the water. She felt Michael's absence acutely, but she also felt his presence in the way she noticed details she hadn't before. On the final evening, the group gathered around a bonfire to share their work. Clara hesitated, her sketchbook clutched tightly in her hands. Adrian, seated across from her, gave her an encouraging nod. "Show us." Taking a deep breath, Clara stood and opened the book. She explained how each sketch represented a moment of clarity she had experienced during the retreat. When she finished, the applause was warm and genuine. For the first time in months, Clara felt a flicker of pride. A shift in the studio. Returning to her studio, Clara attacked the mural with a renewed vigor. The initial strokes were still there, but now they had purpose, a story to tell. She began layering vibrant colors, each one symbolizing a different facet of resilience. Grief, hope, strength, and renewal. Her late-night sessions were often accompanied by memories of Michael. She imagined him standing behind her, his hands on her shoulders, guiding her brush. One evening, Adrian stopped by unannounced, a bottle of wine in hand. "Thought you could use a break," he said, smiling. Clara hesitated. She had grown used to working alone, but there was something comforting about Adrian's presence. As they sat on the floor of her studio, sipping wine and talking, Clara found herself opening up about Michael. "He was my everything," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't know who I am without him." Adrian was silent for a moment before replying. "You're still you, Clara, and maybe part of you will always be his, but that doesn't mean you can't find new pieces of yourself." The final touches. As the deadline approached, Clara worked tirelessly to complete the mural. The wall had transformed into a breathtaking tapestry of emotion, each brushstroke imbued with a depth she hadn't known she was capable of. The centerpiece of the mural was a phoenix, its wings spread wide as it rose from a bed of ashes. It was a tribute to Michael, to their love, and to the resilience he had always believed she possessed. When Clara stepped back to examine her work, tears streamed down her face. For the first time since Michael's death, she felt a sense of peace. The unveiling. The day of the unveiling was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. The museum was filled with patrons, critics, and fellow artists, all eager to see Clara Whitmore's latest masterpiece. Adrian was there too, standing by her side as the curtain was drawn back to reveal the mural. Gasps filled the room, followed by a wave of applause. Clara's heart swelled as she watched people marvel at her work, their faces alight with emotion. "Congratulations," Adrian said, his voice warm. "It's breathtaking." Clara smiled, her eyes glistening. "Thank you for everything." As she stood there, basking in the glow of the crowd, Clara realized that her journey wasn't just about rediscovering her creativity. It was about learning to live again, to find beauty in the broken pieces, and to honor Michael by continuing to create. A new beginning. That evening, after the crowd had dispersed and the museum was quiet, Clara sat alone in front of the mural. "You were right, Michael," she whispered. "My art is my soul, and it's still breathing." For the first time in months, she felt a sense of closure. Not an end, but a beginning. The colors of loss had blended with the hues of hope, creating something entirely new. As she walked out into the night, the stars above seemed to shimmer brighter, as if Michael himself was smiling down at her. And for the first time, Clara smiled back.